The Rise of the Rejuvenile, Embracing Childhood and Adulthood. We were promised happiness as adults, stability, success, freedom, but look around. Long commutes, endless emails, constant stress. Somewhere along the way, we forgot something crucial. We forgot how to laugh. But here's the twist. Some adults haven't forgotten at all. They're rediscovering childhood passions, embracing games, cosplay, and yes, Lego sets. But are these grown-ups immature, or have they actually discovered the secret the rest of us lost? Here's the thing. Society says adulthood is serious business. We expect it to drop the toys, the cartoons, the games, the sports, the hobbies that once gave us joy. But what happens when we don't? See, these judgments aren't just annoying. They create real conflict. Traditional adulthood demands we sacrifice playfulness for seriousness. But what if traditional adulthood got it totally wrong? What if embracing our inner child isn't about avoiding responsibility, but about reclaiming happiness? Stick around, because we're about to dive deep into why Rejuveniles might be onto something profound, and why maybe, just maybe, we've all been adulting wrong. I'm Cassius Clay, and this is the Rejuvenile. Definitions and characteristics of a Rejuvenile. What is a Rejuvenile? The term Rejuvenile describes an adult who cultivates tastes and mindsets traditionally associated with those younger than themselves. In other words, these are grown-ups who love traditionally kid things, from cartoons and toys to games and make-believe, without abandoning their adult responsibilities. Author Christopher Noxon, who coined the term, draws an important line between childish and childlike. Childish behavior implies immaturity, tantrums, irresponsibilities, whereas being childlike means staying open, creative, and flexible in spirit. Rejuveniles embody the latter. They retain youthful enthusiasm and playfulness, but still hold jobs, pay bills, and function as adults. Psychological, sociological profile. Rejuveniles are often driven by nostalgia and a desire for joy. Many are millennials, now in their late 20s to 40s, and older Gen Z, generations that grew up with video games, comics, and Disney movies and never fully outgrew them. But they're not the only ones. Gen X and even boomers can be Rejuveniles too. Some toy brands even include fans born in the 1960s as Kidults. What they share are values like authenticity, creativity, and a refusal to pretend that becoming an adult means losing one's passions. They often see play as a healthy outlet rather than something only for children. Overlap with related terms. You'll hear kidult, kid plus adult, used in marketing and media to describe this same phenomenon. A kidult is essentially an adult whose interests or media habits are traditionally for kids. In fact, rejuvenile and kidult are often synonyms, along with jokey terms like adolescent. The key difference is in connotation. Peter Pan syndrome, for example, is a negative label for someone who refuses to grow up or avoids adult responsibility entirely. Rejuveniles are not Peter Pan syndrome cases. They do grow up, careers, families, mortgages, all of it, but find a moment to return to childhood through hobbies and interests. The Kidult Economy, as one psychologist explains, these adults have the roles of an adult. They just also indulge in play for enjoyment, which is far from the Peter Pan pathology of using play to hide from life. In short, Rejuveniles aren't immature or stuck in Neverland. They're well-adjusted adults who choose to carry childlike wonder into adulthood. Many Rejuveniles similarly rediscover or continue hobbies from childhood. And it's not about refusing to grow up, but re-engaging with what makes them happy. Kidulting is not about being childish or time-wasting, notes Nicole Booz, author of the Kidult Handbook. It's about re-embracing the positive parts of childhood as adults so that we can practice healthy escapism and tap into the things we truly, deeply love. In other words, a Rejuvenile might spend weekends building a Lego set or cosplaying at a Comic-Con, but they'll be back to work on Monday, perhaps less stressed because of that play. Hallmark behaviors and examples. Rejuveniles express their child-at-heart nature in diverse ways. For example, many will collect toys or memorabilia, Action figures, model cars, dolls, trading cards, often the same things they loved as kids. One 48-year-old Rejuvenile, for instance, revived his childhood love of Hot Wheels and has spent hundreds of dollars hunting down his favorite toy cars from old TV shows. Toys aren't just child's play. Mattel, Lego, and others find Kidults bring in big business. Play games, video and analog. Far from outgrowing games, they might log on to Minecraft or Mario Kart after work or host board game nights. Some even join adult sports leagues for playground games like kickball or dodgeball, activities we all learned as school kids that are now repurposed for adult fun. Indulge in make-believe in fandoms. Rejuveniles often remain avid fans of fantasy, horror, sci-fi, and comics. They attend cosplay conventions, dressing up as their favorite superheroes or anime characters. They line up for midnight movie premieres of Marvel or Star Wars and decorate their homes with Harry Potter or Disney memorabilia. Relive childhood experiences. It's increasingly normal to see adults at theme parks without children. Whether it's millennials taking trips to Disneyland just for themselves or friend groups doing escape rooms and laser tag. Visiting Walt Disney World just because is no longer seen as odd. Disney adults are a well-known subset of Rejuveniles. In Knoxon's research, he found plenty of adults who go to Disney World sans kids or throw themselves into weekend cartoon marathons guilt-free. Overall, Rejuveniles blend adult life with kid-like pastimes in a balanced way. They might be professionals, parents, or students by day, and toy collectors or gamers by night, embracing a dual identity that past generations would have found unusual, but is increasingly common now. Cultural context. Why adults are embracing childish hobbies. Why is the Rejuvenile lifestyle booming now? Several cultural and generational shifts have converged to make this trend explode in the 2020s. In 2025, being an adult geek or a toy-buying 30-something is not only accepted, but widely celebrated in many circles. Key factors driving this include nostalgia and comfort in hard times. In an era of rapid change and uncertainty, adults are seeking comfort in the familiar. The cartoons, games, and toys from our childhood bring back simpler, safe memories, a form of emotional security blanket. Research indicates that nostalgia is a highly social and positive emotion that can combat feelings of loneliness and stress. During turbulent periods, like economic recessions or global crisis, it's no surprise adults reach for their old Pokemon cards or binge-watch 90s sitcoms. This nostalgic experiences provide joy and a sense of connectedness with others who share those memories. In fact, the COVID-19 pandemic was a huge catalyst. Stuck at home, many adults rekindled childhood pastimes, puzzles, Lego sets, Mario games, to cope with anxiety and boredom. Toy sales surged during lockdowns as grown-ups turned to playful activities, and even after the world reopened, that spark didn't die out. The pandemic reset the idea that play is only for kids. Adults discovered firsthand how play and nostalgia can soothe stress, burnout, and play as self-care. Modern adulthood is often high pressure, long work hours, economic stress, constant digital bombardment. Embracing childlike hobbies is a relief valve. Psychologists talk about play as a valid form of self-care for adults. It boosts mood, fosters creativity, and gives our overworked brains a break. More on the benefits in the next section. The high prevalence of burnout among millennials has led to a movement of seeking joy deliberately. Playing an hour of Animal Crossing or coloring in a coloring book in the evening can be a mindful escape from adult worries. As one writer put it, these playful indulgences are healthy escapism, not avoidance. They help adults recharge to face their responsibilities again with a clearer head. It's a direct reaction against the grind of hustle culture, millennial and Gen Z identity. Generationally, millennials born around 1981 to 1996 are at the heart of the Rejuvenile boom. This cohort grew up in the golden age of video games, theme parks, comic franchises, Harry Potter, and Pokemon, and importantly, they never saw a reason to give those things up. Unlike their parents or grandparents, millennials were told, follow your passion, and witnessed geek culture go mainstream. The result? They carried their fandoms and hobbies into adulthood as a badge of identity. This is the generation that normalized gaming into adulthood. The average video game player is now 36 years old, up from 29 in 2004. As millennials and Gen Z have kept playing into their 30s, Likewise, Gen Z, now teens to late 20s, largely finds it natural that adults can enjoy cartoons or toys. They've grown up seeing millennials model that behavior. Both generations also tend to delay traditional markers of adulthood, i.e. marriage, kids, etc., which means a 30-year-old today often has more personal free time to game or collect comics than a 30-year-old decades ago who might have had 3 kids to care for. All this has shaped a culture where youthful interests aren't shed at a certain age. As proof of how normalized this has become, consider the once derogatory label Disney adult, a millennial with an annual pass and Mickey Mouse ears. Not long ago, it was mocked, but now it's basically mainstream. Going to Disney World in your 20s or 30s with friends and no kids is extremely common. On a given day, an estimated 40 to 50% of Disney World visitors are adults without children. The stigma of grow up and do grown things is rapidly eroding because so many young adults are in on the trend. Even Disney has acknowledged the shift, offering more adult-focused experiences like gourmet food festivals and bar areas in its parks. Connected communities and pop culture influence. Another big factor is the rise of fan communities and pop culture resurgence. The internet allows adults with, quote, childish hobbies to find each other easily and form communities. There are Reddit forums for adult Lego builders, Discord groups for Pokemon card traders, and thousands of YouTube channels and TikToks celebrating nostalgia. Think unboxing vintage toys or revisiting retro games. This creates a positive feedback loop. It's easier to stay passionate about something when you have a community to share it with. Conventions like Comic-Con, anime expos, and gaming tournaments attract tens of thousands of adult attendees annually, reinforcing that it's totally normal for adults to cosplay as their favorite characters or get giddy over new superhero trailers. Meanwhile, Hollywood and the media have leaned heavily into rebooting or continuing franchises from the past, effectively targeting the now adult fans. The past few years alone saw legacy brands like Star Wars, Jurassic Park, Ghostbusters, Harry Potter, and Disney animated classics revived or extended, largely because studios know millennials will flock to them. When Star Wars The Mandalorian hit streaming, it wasn't just kids tuning in. It was 30 and 40-somethings. And they went out and bought Baby Yoda toys for themselves. When the Barbie movie became a global blockbuster in 2023, it sparked a wave of adults buying Barbie dolls and merch for nostalgia's sake. One toy industry analyst noted that these kinds of pop culture moments, a hit Star Wars series or a nostalgic film, directly boost toy and collectible sales among adults. In short, our broader pop culture now constantly feeds and rewards nostalgia, which in turn encourages Rejuveniles to proudly indulge in it. All these factors, stress relief, generational change, community support, and pop culture fuel, have combined to create a perfect environment for the Rejuvenile movement to flourish. It's a feedback loop. The more adults participate, the more companies and media cater to them, which further legitimizes the lifestyle. The result, here in 2025, seeing a 35-year-old man with a Pokemon t-shirt and a Lego Millennium Falcon on their desk barely raises an eyebrow. If anything, it sparks a conversation. Hey, I had that when I was a kid too. And a new friendship between two Rejuveniles might be born. Rebuttals to criticism. Why being a Rejuvenile isn't immature. Of course, not everyone applauds the rise of the Rejuvenile. Critics have levied a few common criticisms at adults who love, quote, kid stuff, such as infantilization or arrested development. The claim that indulging in childhood hobbies is a sign of refusing to grow up. Essentially, adults playing pretend instead of facing reality. Detractors invoke Peter Pan syndrome and argue these people are avoiding the responsibilities of adulthood. Laziness or escapism taken too far. Some assume that if a 30-year-old is busy building toy models or grinding levels in a video game, they must be neglecting, quote, productive adult pursuits. It's seen by some as time wasting or hiding from real life, aka bills, career, relationships, etc., cultural decline and maturity. There's an old school sentiment that each generation is becoming less mature. Stereotypes emerge of millennials living in parents' basements, watching cartoons, unable to handle independence. The Rejuvenile trend is, to these critics, evidence of society regressing into childishness. So, is there any truth to these concerns? The evidence and expert opinions say Not really. Rejuveniles themselves strongly disagree with the caricature of them as slackers or perpetual children, and psychologists back them up. Here are some counterpoints and benefits. They are responsible adults. Play is just a hobby, not a lifestyle of avoidance. Studies of this demographic find that the vast majority of, quote, Kidult hobbyists hold normal adult roles and meet their obligations. Earlier, Rejuveniles usually compartmentalize. They handle work, family, finances, and then enjoy cartoons or toys or sports on their own time. Quote, adults with a childlike spirit have a complete professional life and are by no means adults trapped in childhood. End quote. One analysis explains, quote, they simply want to have fun in their free time. In other words, collecting Funko Pops in the evening doesn't stop someone from being a competent teacher or an accountant by day. Psychologists emphasize that this trend, quote, isn't about rejecting adult obligations. Rejuveniles actually tend to view play as a way to recharge so they can attend to their obligations better. It's the difference between a healthy enthusiast and someone truly unable to grow up. As proof, many Rejuveniles, our parents themselves, are successful professionals. They've effectively added a layer of youthful fun onto a solid adult foundation rather than replacing that foundation. Mental health and resilience. Far from harming adults, engaging in play and nostalgia can be hugely beneficial for mental well-being. When you see a grown man happily painting Warhammer miniatures or a young mom obsessing over K-pop merch, remember that play is a stress buster. Quote, when we engage in pure playfulness, the kind that whisk away time and worry, done solely for enjoyment, the frontal cortex of our brains literally burst in fireworks, says Meredith Sinclair, author of a book on playfulness. That playful state triggers neurochemical rewards. Serotonin levels rise, for example, that give us feelings of contentment. In short, play equals joy. We physiologically come away feeling happier and more relaxed after indulging in fun. Many Rejuveniles describe their hobby as a form of self-care, a way to unwind from adult stress. Rather than avoiding problems, taking an hour to immerse in a favorite game or build a model can clear one's head and reduce anxiety. Psychologist Christine Bacho notes that play may start as an escape from burdens, but it can actually revive positive emotions like awe and wonder, helping adults return to real life with a fresh perspective. This can build emotional resilience. After a tough day, watching an old cartoon clip may lift your mood in a way a glass of wine can't, and there's nothing wrong or, quote, childish about that. In fact, it's healthy coping. Cognitive benefits and creativity. Playing like a kid can make adults more creative and innovative. When you're doodling in an adult coloring book or role-playing in Dungeons & Dragons, you're exercising the imagination. Pacho points out that suspending reality for a bit through play can foster creativity. Putting our mental editor on pause for a bit can allow innovative ideas to surface. That's one reason some companies, especially in creative and tech industries, encourage playful thinking, because a playful mind is a flexible, inventive mind. Many Rejuveniles find that their quirky hobbies actually enhance their problem-solving skills or inspire them in their work. It's telling that Lego serious play workshops and gamification have become buzzwords in corporate training. The value of play is recognized for adults. So, the counter-argument to, quote, you're wasting time playing is that a little play can recharge your mental batteries and even spark new ideas that save time or earn you success later. As Sinclair humorously observes, play creates a, quote, fertile soil for creativity, art, invention, and cognitive flexibility. We've all experienced the eureka moment that comes when you step away from a problem to do something fun. That's what Rejuveniles are tapping into regularly: social connection and community. Engaging in, quote, childish hobbies can actually strengthen relationships, both among peers and across generations. Many Rejuveniles form strong friendships through shared interests: gaming groups, collector clubs, cosplay communities, sports teams, etc. Playing Mario Kart with your college buddies online is a way to bond and maintain friendships despite busy adult lives. Quote, inviting others to play can enhance the pleasant feelings of youth, says Bachko. We rekindle that joyful camaraderie from childhood when we play together as adults. For those who are parents, embracing kid-friendly fun can improve parent-child relationships too. A parent who loves Disney movies or Pokemon might find more common ground with their kids, making family time genuinely enjoyable for both generations, as opposed to a parent who reluctantly adores kids' activities. Rather than a household where toys are seen as clutter, a Rejuvenile parent may get on the floor and build a Lego set with their child, turning playtime into family bonding. This can help kids feel closer to their parents. Mom or dad isn't always off doing adult stuff. They're sharing in the fun. It also helps the adult feel young and connected to the child's world. In a broader sense, Rejuveniles often report feeling part of a community, whether it's a local adult kickball league or an online fan forum, which combats the disconnection and loneliness that many adults struggle with. It's hard to characterize that as a bad thing. Innovation and cultural progress. Some cultural commentators even argue that this trend of adults embracing play could have long-term positive effects on society. Playful adults may be more adaptable and open-minded. Creativity sparked by, quote, childish pursuits may lead to real-world innovations. Today's makers and inventors often started as kids who never stopped tinkering with toys. And the willingness to question the traditional rules of how an adult should behave can lead to questioning other outdated norms. In a way, Rejuveniles are expanding the definition of adulthood to be more inclusive of individuality and mental well-being. The freedom to be a bit silly or imaginative might also correlate with more tolerance and positivity in society. At the very least, it makes life more fun. And couldn't we all use a bit more fun? In summary, the knee-jerk criticisms that Rejuveniles are irresponsible and regressing aren't backed by data. On the contrary, adults who integrate play and nostalgia into their lives often report better stress management, strong social ties, and a happier outlook. Rather than escaping life, they may be mastering the art of enjoying it. As one writer quipped, growing old is mandatory, but growing up is optional. Rejuveniles take that to heart, and many are arguably better off for it. Trends and market data. A booming Kidult economy. What does the rise of Rejuveniles mean in terms of hard numbers and industry trends? In short, it's big business and getting bigger. Entire markets are now oriented toward these playful adults, and companies have taken notice in a major way. Here are some eye-opening stats and examples. Adults are a huge chunk of toy buyers. Toy sales are no longer driven only by kids or parents buying for kids. A significant portion is adults buying for themselves. In 2023, adults accounted for 17.3% of all U.S. toy sales, about $6.7 billion in spending. That was up 8% from the year before, according to Business Insider, despite overall toy sales dipping, meaning Kidult purchasers were the growth engine. In fact, in early 2024, U.S. adults outspent even children in certain months. From January to April, adults brought more toys than any other age group, surpassing preschoolers for the first time. Yeah, let me say that again. Adult buyers eclipsed the 0 to 5 age demo in toy consumption. This pattern isn't just in the US. Europe sees a similar 16% of toy sales coming from over 18 age buyers. And the trend is noted as global, particularly strong in Asia as well. In the words of a market analyst, the rise of the, quote, Kidult market is a, quote, global phenomenon. Top franchises and collectibles fueling the craze. What kind of toys or games are adults buying for themselves? Largely those tied to nostalgia and pop culture fandoms. According to sales data, some of the best-selling toy lines among adults include Pokemon, trading cards, and etc., Star Wars, merchandise, Lego, theme sets like Lego Star Wars, collectible figurines like Funko Pop, and even plushies like Squishmallows. Notice a trend? These are all items connected to beloved brands or childhood memories. And a lot of adult spending goes into high-end collectibles. Detailed action figures, replica props, limited edition dolls, basically the, quote, toys that a kid might think are cool, but only an adult has the wallet to afford. For example, Mattel reports that adult collectors now make up as much as 25% of the sales for some of its flagship brands like Hot Wheels and Barbie. Companies have responded by creating more products specifically for adult fans. Lego launched an, quote, adults welcome line Detailed models of world landmarks, famous paintings, and other nostalgic pop culture sets. Barbie released collector edition dolls tied to classic movies, and action figure companies routinely produce $100 or more premium figurines aimed at grown-ups who will display them. Even the packaging sometimes says 18+, to signal it's meant for adults. In essence, toy makers have realized the same person who loved, say, Star Wars at age 10 might now happily spend $800 on a replica lightsaber at age 40. The leisure experience economy, play for grown-ups. Beyond toys, Rejuveniles are driving growth in experiences that are basically play for adults. A great example is the boom in escape rooms. Live-action puzzle adventures where groups, mostly adult friends or co-workers, solve themed challenged a la the Saw movies, without the gruesome deaths. This industry was virtually non-existent a decade ago. Now the escape room market is worth around $9 billion in 2024 and climbing fast, largely thanks to adults craving immersive game-like experiences. Likewise, like Comic-Con or gaming expos have multiplied and grown. Adult attendance at these events is enormous. San Diego Comic-Con regularly draws over 130,000 attendees, predominantly adults in fandom. Theme parks have also adapted to the kidult wave. Disney parks, as mentioned, report on some days nearly half their visitors are adults without kids. Disney is actively catering to them by adding adult-oriented offerings, from pricey gourmet dining events at Epcot like $250 per person Japanese omakase dinners to after-hours parties and sophisticated rides based on Marvel and Star Wars that appeal to adult pop culture fans. The Walt Disney Company even announced a colossal $60 billion investments in parks over its next decade, in part to serve this growing demographic of young adult rejuvenile visitors who have highly disposable income. And outside of Disney, we see adult nights at museums and zoos, video game barcades, think bars with arcade games and consoles, and businesses like adult summer camps. Yes, you can go relive camp as a grown-up with arts and crafts and all of it. All these experiences acknowledge that adults are eager to engage in play and fun traditionally aimed at kids or teens, if you just give them the opportunity. Pop culture moments and marketing stunts. The resurgence of nostalgia in media has provided plenty of fuel for Rejuveniles. One big recent example was 2023's Barbie movie, a film that smartly targeted both children and the adults who grew up with Barbie. Its success led to a spike in Barbie doll sales to adults, as noted earlier. We've also seen TV shows like Stranger Things, steeped in 1980s Stephen King, Steven Spielberg nostalgia, spark sales of retro collectibles and even Dungeons and Dragons among adults who remember the 80s. Companies are not shy about directly courting the kidult rejuvenile demographic with clever marketing. One headline-grabbing case? McDonald's Adult Happy Meals. In late 2022, McDonald's released a limited edition Happy Meal experience for grown-ups, complete with toys, figurines of classic McDonaldland characters like Grimace, meant to trigger nostalgia. The response was overwhelming. The adult Happy Meals sold out in less than a week due to huge demand. McDonald's Adult Happy Meals were a huge success, causing chaos at some locations. Fans, largely millennials, flooded stores trying to get the collectible toys, demonstrating just how powerful childhood nostalgia plus clever marketing can be. Similarly, brands like Nike and Adidas have done sneaker lines inspired by cartoons and video games, and cereal companies have brought back, quote, retro packaging to appeal to those longing for the breakfast of their youth. The toy industry even has a term for high-end collectibles aimed at adults, quote, kidult collectibles, covering everything from $400 die-cast model cars to life-size superhero helmets. It's a lucrative segment. One report noted that collectibles category, which skews adult, has been a financial lifeline for toy makers facing declining kid populations. The Kidult Economy, market growth, and longevity. All indicators suggest the Rejuvenile trend is not a passing fad, but a lasting shift. Toy makers are planning long-term around kidult consumers. In fact, a January 2025 industry report headline declared, quote, birth rate slump is no match for kidult buyers. With many countries seeing fewer children born, The toy industry is increasingly leaning on adult buyers to sustain growth, and it's working. Adult fandom and collector communities are expected to keep growing in the coming years, especially as the current cohort of playful millennials ages. Some will even have more disposable income in their 40s and 50s to spend on hobbies. Analysts predict the Kidult market could, quote, grow tremendously in size. And retailers are dedicating more shelf space to adult-focused products in stores. We're already seeing formerly niche events and hobbies become mainstream annual traditions for adults. E.g., adults now anticipate new Lego releases or the next Comic-Con the way kids look forward to Christmas. In pop culture, studios know that reboots and sequels tapping into 20 to 30-year-old nostalgia can reliably pull in adult audiences, so the cycle will continue there as well. In short, businesses are banking on Rejuveniles being here to stay. And with Gen Z coming of age, a generation arguably even more open about unabashedly loving what they love, the pipeline of future Kidult consumers is strong. To put it plainly, the dollars and trends speak loud. Kid stuff for adults is serious business. This feedback loop of demand from adults and supply from industries has cemented the Rejuvenile culture in our economy. It's not just a few lonely adults hugging their teddy bears in secret. It's tens of millions of adults openly spending money on playing nostalgia, even to move markets. And as this becomes ever more normalized, we can expect even more innovative products and experiences tailored to the inner child in everyone. Philosophical and social impact. Redefining adulthood. Beyond the dollars and demographics, the rise of Rejuveniles hint at a deeper cultural shift, a reimagining of what it means to be an, quote, adult in today's world. Traditional adulthood, think the stoic 9-to-5 breadwinner in a suit who never cracks a smile at a silly joke, is being challenged by a new archetype of adulthood that embraces joy, creativity, and self-expression alongside the responsibility. The social impact of this can be profound. For much of recent history, there was a tacit script for growing up. At a certain age, you were expected to, quote, put away childish things. Hobbies seen as immature were to be replaced by serious pursuits. Adulthood was almost performative. You prove you're a grown-up by adopting a certain subdued, practical demeanor. But as Rejuveniles proliferate, that script is being rewritten. As Christopher Knoxon observed, quote, I came to think of the border between adulthood and childhood as a Cold War checkpoint. Once spotlit and armed, now unguarded and porous. The once rigid line separating, quote, childish and, quote, adult behavior has blurred. Today, there's simply no sanction against childlike enthusiasm in adults. Society at large is more permissive of adults who fanboy or fangirl over the things or exhibit giddy excitement like a kid. What we've lost in formality or strictness, few people wear fedoras and speak in the reserved tones of these adults now. We've gained in freedom. Adults can openly love what they love without as much shame. There's a growing acceptance that maturity is not measured by the hobbies you drop, but by qualities like empathy, responsibility, and the ability to find happiness. This shift creates a new adult archetype, one that is more emotionally honest and in touch with their inner child. It becomes okay for an adult to say their favorite movie is an animated film, or to decorate their office with action figures, or throw their very own sports-themed birthday party at 30. In fact, it can be seen as a sign of confidence. You're secure enough in your adulthood that you don't need to constantly perform seriousness. The new archetype values joy, lifelong curiosity, and play as integral parts of a full life, rather than as a childish frivolity. It also prizes authenticity. Adults who feel free to be their whole selves, which might include a love for SpongeBob SquarePants or hours spent crafting cosplay armor, instead of hiding those interests to fit a mold. There are potential positive social impacts of this mindset too. For one, it can make adulthood more pleasant and mentally healthy. If society encourages adults to play and imagine, people might experience less midlife crisis angst and feel less pressure to abandon the things that make them happy in the first place. It can also bridge generational gaps. When parents and kids share interests, hello, the countless parents and kids bonding over Marvel movies or Minecraft, or parents who are sports parents. It strengthens understanding between generations. Additionally, A culture that lets adults be playful might foster more innovation, as discussed earlier, and collaborative spirit, even in workplaces. The old norm of stifling your personality is giving way to a more playful office culture in many industries, under the theory that playful employees are more creative and productive. Of course, some might view fully grown adults obsessed with, say, comic books as, quote, undignified or silly. But as Knox and Riley put it, quote, the spectacle of fully grown adults behaving like teens might seem comical. But let's be honest, traditional adulthood didn't do us many favors. In other words, the old way, where everyone over 21 had to be deadly serious, suppressing their inner child, wasn't exactly a utopia of mental health or fulfillment either. The Rejuvenile movement is an answer to that. It says you don't have to lose your spark to grow up. You can pay your rent and have a shelf full of Transformers. You can be a caring parent and a die-hard anime cosplayer. In fact, allowing yourself that playful spark might make the burdens of adulthood easier to carry, not harder. Philosophically, this trend raises the idea that play, creativity, and joy are lifelong needs, not just childhood needs. It suggests a more continuum-based view of human development rather than discrete stages where you abruptly become a different creature at 18 or 21. And as life expectancy has increased, people live decades longer than they did a century ago. Adults have more, quote, extra years to fill beyond the basics of survival. Why not fill some of them with play? Some experts frame the Rejuvenile phenomenon as a natural evolution. With society's progress, higher living standards, and a bit more breathing room beyond immediate survival, adults can afford to indulge in play and exploration longer. It might even be integral to personal growth. Retaining curiosity and openness can lead to continual learning and adaptation, essential traits in a fast-changing world. In social terms, we might be witnessing the reinvention of the image of adulthood. It's increasingly acceptable for, quote, respectable adults to have colorful, eccentric inner lives and hobbies. Think of the workplace. A few decades ago, you wouldn't catch many executives openly discussing their comic book collection. Now it's not unheard of to see a CEO geek out over Star Wars in an interview. As more Rejuveniles occupy positions of influence, which is happening as millennials age into leadership roles, the culture becomes more accommodating of this new adult normal. We've gone from, quote, grow up, being a reprimand to almost an outdated insult. Many adults will respond, why? I can handle my life and still have fun. In conclusion, the Rejuvenile trend is expanding the definition of adulthood. It asserts that being an adult can include a sense of play, wonder, and openness that was traditionally reserved for kids. This doesn't mean regressing to childhood, but rather carrying the best qualities of childhood, creativity, joy, imagination, into one's adult years. The rapid growth of this culture in 2025 and beyond suggests that future generations will increasingly see nothing odd about adults who watch cartoons or collect comics. It will just be a part of normal life. The archetype of the joyless, strictly serious adult may gradually fade, replaced by one of adults who are, in a sense, young at heart for life. And as long as these Rejuveniles continue to meet their adult responsibilities, which they do for the most part, perhaps society will be all the richer, a bit more fun, a bit more kind, and a bit more creative for this evolution.